Hey, everybody. We are watching a scene from Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and analyzing it for a spiritual theme. So, this is the scene where ego turns evil. All right, you guys ready?
Evil.
3, 2, 1, click.
In my existence, I am truly not alone! What is it, son? My friends. Well, you see, that's the mortal in you, Peter.
Yes.
We are beyond such things.
Yes.
Now,
But my mother. You said you loved my mother.
and that I did. My river lily, who knew all the words to every song that came over the radio. I returned to Earth to see her 3 times, and I knew if I returned a 4th, I'd never leave. The expansion, reason for my very existence would be over, so I did what I had to do. But it broke my heart to put that tumor in her head.
What?
No, all right. I know that sounds bad. Who in the hell do you think you are?
You killed my mother!
I tried so hard to find the form
That best suited you! And this is the thanks I get?
you really need to grow up. I wanted to do this together. But I suppose you'll have to learn by spending the next 1,000 years as a battery.
Rocket.
Keep that transmitter nearby so I can find you. We're in an old piece of construction equipment Yondu once used to slice open the Bank of Ascavaria.
Ego's unhinged.
I know. Get ready.
Copper crackling. My life, my love, my lady is the sea. Peter, this is the sea. Hey there, jackass!
Oh, that was great. So, you've probably heard me say this before, but sometimes I wonder if these movies, like the writers, know their theology and put this stuff in the film. But I have not seen this scene since I watched this movie in theaters. So I didn't watch this before this. But when he says, Peter, this is the sea, well, in theology, like in the ancient Near East where Judaism came out of and Babylon and all that, sea meant chaos. So he says that, Peter, this is the sea, and he crushes the Walkman, and like chaos unleashes. And I'm like, there's no way that they didn't know that. Like, that can't be a coincidence, can it? Because
Maybe
you're
not.
dealing.
I mean, James Gunn is a very talented writer. I mean, you can say what you want about how much he swears,
in some of his Peacemaker stuff, but all in all,
Just a little bit.
He's a really talented writer, and he's got some good stories. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was looking into creating this story. And it's like, what are some things that happen? Let's pull some words from here and here in the Bible and Nephilim and all the other things you've been talking about, and put them into the story and just use them. So it's very possible. Yeah.
So ego is a celestial, right?
Correct.
And we talked about them on our Eternals podcast, where we dove into the theology there. So the reason I was wondering is because Jack Kirby created Eternals as a way to explore the origin of humans and different religions. So there is some stuff from ancient Near Eastern, Babylonian, Jewish theology in Eternals comics and here with the Celestials that Jack Kirby put there as a way to kind of explore spirituality. So what did you find, Drew?
Okay, so Ego actually, he was created by Jack Kirby, and he made an appearance in 1966, and he was actually with Thor. That's where he made his appearance. He was with a couple comics with Avengers. Obviously, they decided to put him in with Guardians of the Galaxy because this is the first time you'd actually seen him in Guardians or with anything to do with the Guardians.
Weird.
So, yeah.
So, did they make him Star-Lord's dad just for this movie then?
It looks like it.
Interesting. So I take him to be a god figure. Is he more like a god or more like an angel?
To me, it sounds he's like a little bit more of a god. He was just called Ego the Living Planet. And that's what he was. So he was reimagined as a celestial and the father of Peter. Okay. So that's not his original.
The movie, or it wasn't even in the newer comics?
For this movie, they changed his story to make him a celestial.
They must be blending them with Eternals, because I just watched a scene from Guardians 1 where there was a very short clip of Erisham destroying a planet. So they must be linking this up with Eternals.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That's what the things coming out of the planets were celestials.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that was Erisham until after we watched Eternals for this podcast. So,
yeah.
Well, what were your reactions and what themes did you see here in the scene?
First thing I think of is love, unconditional love, and actually, it's interesting. He does what he does when he finds out that Ego killed his mom, because that's who Peter Quill is. If you remember in Infinity War, he finds out that Thanos killed Gamora, and he goes berserk. And if he hadn't, they might have gotten that glove off, which ironically he admits to in part 3. I saw that in the clip. But yeah, I think just showing that unconditional love, because as soon as he finds out that Ego was the one who put the tumor in his mom's head, he comes back to reality, and he doesn't even hesitate, pulls out his guns, and then just starts unloading.
Yeah.
So I think that's one theme. I'm not saying I agree with what he does, but I probably would do the same thing.
It's interesting.
It's space, so it's okay.
Yeah, Peter's got that love for his mother, and finding out that Ego did that obviously puts him into a rage where he feels like he has to get his revenge. And at the same time, Egos has so much love for Peter's mother that he put a tumor in her head because he knew that he could not, like he said, I could not basically live without her. And I knew that's the only way that I could go on living my life is she had to have done that. It's like they both had the love for the same woman, and they just had different ways of, it's just
expressing it.
Yeah. It's like he said, if I go back for the 4th time, I would never have left. So that's why I had to do that, because it'd give me a reason not to go back to Earth, and I can continue on with my way of life that I need. So he did that out of love. And at the same time, Peter's like, well, I love her too, so I'm going to shoot holes in you.
Was it love, or was it more lust? Because he wanted to be with her so much, but he was being selfish and
Mhm.
I need to rule the universe. So was it love, or did he love the fact of being with her?
Yeah.
Was he in love with her,
Infatuation,
or just,
maybe.
yeah?
Or did
Yeah.
he love
Because
her, but he loved power more? So
that
he
Yes.
could be,
eliminated
That's
one of his
probably
loves.
more. That's probably more
yeah.
accurate.
Mhm.
And then I'm
One way
not
to look at
sure. I forgot that he turned into David Hasselhoff for a second.
it.
I thought that's who that was. I was like,
That was
"What?"
David,
Like,
dressed
"Come get
as
in my
Michael Knight.
car."
Michael Knight.
Surprised he didn't say, "Kit, come get me out of here."
Oh, man. I did think it was really interesting that he says, like, "Oh, you only care about her because you're mortal." So he's saying that there's something about being mortal that causes you to love. But, yeah, he loves, he's just denying it, right?
I think the difference is the attachment part of it. Like he was getting attached, but he was still that wasn't his main thing. So he has no problem. Obviously, it hurt to put that tumor in her head, but oh hey, oh well, is how he kind of played it off, right? I didn't want to do it,
Mhm.
but I had to, and life goes on. The mortal side of us has that more of the attachment to having feelings about losing
This is
something.
And
kinda
that
like
So
brings us,
Eternals.
that's a huge circle right there, what we've talked about in the past, because the Nephilim were the fallen angels, right?
Mm. They're
And
the
they
children of the fallen
fell,
angels,
or
yeah.
children. Okay, so the fallen angels fell because they were jealous that God gave humans certain emotions. Now they loved God, but they loved God because that's all they knew. And
Yeah.
it's almost like, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but it's like you love your parents because that's all you ever knew. But you don't love your parents like you love your wives. So I think and especially with Ego being a celestial, I mean, we talked about that during the Eternals podcast. The celestials are like angels, a little bit different than a celestial being born. Ego is a celestial that is trying to destroy, trying to take over. And that feels more like a fallen angel than. So, did
Yeah.
he really? Yeah, he said those are mortal emotions. So, he didn't really know what love was,
right,
or not the same as Peter and everyone else.
he didn't know
He
like
just,
unconditional
there you go.
love is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's like the emotion part of it. Maybe he really didn't think he knew what love actually is. And like Doug said, he thought he knew, but if he really truly loved that woman, he wouldn't have put a
Found a way
tumor
to
in her
keep her
brain.
alive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He
he
would
he
have
would
didn't
have
feel it.
made her a part of it.
exactly. He would have done something else.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's this huge planet. He's got to, okay, come live on my planet, and we'll figure out how to make you immortal like me,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll take over the world, the
Mm.
universe, or something like that. But he doesn't have that same
The
unconditional
emotion.
love. Yeah,
He doesn't love very selflessly. He loves selfishly. Yeah.
there
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, and for listeners to catch them up if they haven't seen our Eternals episode. So in the Old Testament period, the angels were called gods with a little g, like lowercase g. So when we say angel, God is not God the creator. There's God capital G who created angels or gods. So a celestial here to us is like a god with a lowercase g. That's kind of what Jack Kirby was probably going for when they created Celestials, I would think. So this could possibly be an exploration of, what if God is evil? Because some people believe or teach that God even causes all the evil in the world. Now, I think I would say that evil is more of a result of like the absence of God or, something like that. But some people think that God causes absolutely everything, right? So if you got a disease, then God gave you that disease. And I wonder if that's something they were wrestling with here. I'm not sure. Like, what if you met God and he turned out to be evil, which is the opposite of what we just watched that Bruce Almighty scene. It's
Mhm.
that's he met God and God was good, but here Peter Quill meets God and God's evil. Well, what would you do,
Yeah,
Would
that's a
be.
good point. I mean, there's I think we've mentioned this before some other time about like why do somebody gets a cancer or an illness, and you're thinking, why did that person get it? What did they do to deserve that? They're healthy. They work out. They eat right. They do all this good stuff. Why did they get it? And you're right. Did God do that? Why would God do that to this person? But at the same time, you got to sometimes just think, well, sometimes bad things just happen. I don't know if necessarily God is the one purposely putting it on there, but I think that's just the way of things happen. And then you have that choice of how you deal with it. I don't know. I mean, it's a tricky one. It's,
Yeah.
I don't think, I personally don't believe that. I don't think God gives people this disease. I think he can put you in a position to make a choice, like a life choice. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. Do I marry this person? Do I not? Do I have kids? Do I not? You know, stuff like that. But as for somebody getting sick, I think that's just one of those things that sometimes things just happen and then you have to figure it out from that point.
Yeah. It's part of living
we're
in the physical realm.
Yeah, and we're so young in the whole science aspect of everything. 500 years, we're going to realize that the reason why, for instance, she was at the time, she was 7 years old. My niece got cancer. Thank God she did survive it. She's 13 now, doing great, playing volleyball, kicking butt. But in 500 years, we may look at it and it's like, okay, well, the genealogy from my brother and my sister-in-law, the DNA's the way the protein things and blah, words, and that combination unfortunately was just the wrong combination of millions and millions of strands of DNA that just happened to produce one small little nugget that grew in her leg for 7 years and then it popped out. So that's probably what we'll find out. Obviously, there's diseases where people make horrible decisions, bad decisions, or whatever.
Yeah.
People who get lung cancer, smoked all their lives, that's a choice.
Yeah.
That's not a God thing. But yeah, little things like that, I think we'll find out in the future. And again, that's just something God did. And God did not say, hey, Matt and Kelly, have a baby. He let them decide. And it just so happened that their genetics.
He made them. He floated them towards each other.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we'll find that out. Or somebody will. We probably won't.
Well, the one last thing I wanted to mention in this movie is we saw how Ego says, like, oh, you're only caring for these people because you're mortal. Well, we saw something that opposes that in Eternals because we saw the Eternals start to get feelings for humans, right? And they're eternal. They're not celestials, but they're basically an immortal being, an immortal robot. But that's interesting because that shows that Ego probably isn't right. He's probably not thinking straight because we've seen an immortal figure develop feelings for a human elsewhere. But if you go back to theology, in Babylonian religion, Mesopotamian, they believed that the gods were distant and kind of like Ego. So they were distant and potentially hostile to humans, and they didn't have an attachment to humans. They would kill them if they did something wrong. So that's why the people believed they had to make all these sacrifices. So Ego might actually be modeled off of something like that. So it's interesting.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We will see you in another episode soon.
Later.